Some translations from the Japanese. First by Kambara Tai, who was a painter, abstract painter, and also a futurist poet. This was published in 1929. Growth and development of the inorganic body. Struck with terror and trembling, my soul senses the inorganic body, crying out vigorously through the night of red, yellow, and purple. Its deeper, more certain sensuality becomes one now with the breath of the inorganic body, which grows secretly, swelling even as if a luminous body, quaking and moaning. It is the joy of the devil, and for me a hope nervously twitching. All of my senses become sharp as needles. In the dead of night, when all the organs of touch gain sight even of their inner lives, I think about a friend with whom I have spoken of the inorganic body and the paintings he says he has made. Sleep has been taken from me. No, I do not even wish for sleep. Contained within the static of night is the raucous laughter of the too many devils and the breathing of the inorganic body. I like to sit still and put up with it and pray for good fortune over the inorganic body. I do not love the inorganic body as if it were something celestial. Its licentious indecency and hopeless impulsiveness make it the true modern man, because they endure, wrapped up tightly in their interiors. Their unfulfilled instincts shine always in red, black, and purple. Their pale spirits battling within them are complete only momentarily, always tormented, grasping for breath. The deeper wisdom in myself and more certain sensuality becomes one now with the rhythm of the inorganic body. This is most certainly the greatest joy on earth. Then more translations by Yoshioka Minoru. Early poems, originally published, self-published during World War II, 1940. A season of stupor. Spring. Morning hangs a silver coin on the legs of a butterfly. Inside the stem of a moisture-sensitive plant, a wedding without buttons begins. O sky that sleeps briefly in the smell of a phosphorus match, a white glove droops southward. Ennui that darkens into an artificial flower. Bodily temperature pasted upside down on the wall. The stains of the table soak up the cloudy sky. I forget the scale-shaped dream in the mirror of the railway station and decorate the steeple with lost virginity and stars. Thank you.
Watten.avi by James Shea. And just a quick reminder, we are going to decamp from here to Smoky Joe's right around the corner of 40th Street between Locust and Walnut. Please join us after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. When I've read at the MLA offsite reading, I've usually tried to read something directly connected to the MLA or to academia. And this is from the last, most recent volume of the Grand Piano, a section of it that deals with the dual identity of being a poet and a professor. Zone. The Furies attack the evidence of his sentimentality. Our medium is free association, but the idea we had is not good enough. One day, walking in the Sierras, I picked up a rock, a red rock. It was good enough. Fractal variations of coastline, waves undermining cliffs of thought. Living their lives, your debt increases. Purely functional curves, broken free of any purpose, are becoming as ornamental as scrolls of Art Deco. Negativity. As if to put frosting on the cake, the philosopher N goes on to write, quote, "Thus it happened, for example, that one day I was a university professor. No such idea had ever entered my mind, for I was barely 24 years old. Forgetting his purposes, N finds them transparently clear. Having become a professor at such an early age is a precondition for a delirious forgetfulness, or so it seems to him. Later, as the poet accurately records, it turns out he had once been a professor. Usually we imagine that later our purposes will come clear, but N originally forgets them. This is a necessary precondition of sovereignty. I have not yet seen a dissertation on the connection between the philosopher N and Michael Douglas. I propose that one be written. In it, the author will examine the advantages and disadvantages of history for life of a gentrified wannabe coming to maturity at the moment of his culture's moral devolution in quest of rationales for his advancement in the system. Of course, the gentrified wannabe cannot imagine such a sentence sufficiently to write it. He is not fully self-conscious, we would say. This lack of self-consciousness, his innocence or purity in N's original sense, is precisely the means by which he seeks to continually reinvent his career. But why are Michael Douglas's middle-aged worries not as hysterically funny as those of philosopher N? It must be the contrast between N's middle-aged worries, nearly choking on a fishbone, and his desire for sovereignty and forgetfulness that entertains us best. Those oceanic feelings, a return to an innocent state in which our purposes, the transvaluation of all values, would be identical to the most everyday acts. N thus becomes the original comedian who ceaselessly reinvents his career. End of dissertation. Being an academic myself, I wish I had retained more of my earlier capacity to forget, but the business precludes it, unless one arrives at one's professorship at a very early age, leading to the moral devolution N wished. There is simply a continuous need for information instantaneously available on recall. That is why I am so pleased with my new citation database software from Disintegral Systems. With it, I can organize and search with Boolean operators thousands of references I had previously stored in my head. The organization of these references would yield a true map of my knowledge. Even the coding of data is fun. Assigning the limited number of subject keywords puts each unit of knowledge precisely in their place. I imagine a Boolean keyword search of our poetic collaboration as an act of historical accounting. We will begin with the longer poems of Ron Silliman and continue until we have exhausted our recursive algorithms and arrive at a transparency of experience to writing as a form of philosophical truth, as N would like, but by an entirely opposite route. Staring at a bowl of soup in Nice, over lunch in the suburbs of Detroit, we begin. At lunch, Carla is reading a new script by a black writer from Detroit, Ron Allen. Quote, "This is almost as good as Howl," she exclaims, for showing where the violence of social conditions intersects with language. It is not shoveling snow in the suburbs, nor choking on a fishbone in Nice. It is subject to a downward pressure at every point, producing language that records its oppression. The downward pressure of race and class as the underside of power. Fish from deep waters explode on the philosopher's plate, showering bones in all directions. N would have choked to read just one of Ron Allen's lines. There is no such thing as a suburb, at least from where I sit. There may be no such thing as a city. I am writing this online to those of you who are located in that manner. Where does the social violence appear? In the gaps between data, the eternal return of our outward mobility as nothing more than a bastardized will to power? Or is the presumed absence of violence in our writing just equal to our ascendancy to the liberal elite? Relations of power may indeed be experienced in other ways, as they have been in Detroit. Does our writing record that fact, or endeavor to displace it? The deepening lines of Michael Douglas's aging physiognomy reveal the politics of maquiladora labor as much as suntan sessions in Sri Lanka. Our writing may be rifted with social violence, but not like Ron Allen's.